So, welcome to Enthinkment Circle. And today, for members only, we are going to have Sabine Trofimo, and we are going to be recording it, but you have to be a member of Enthinkment Circle on our mailing list to get it. Uh, and today, she's going to take us through Heidegger's book on mindfulness in German, though. And she's going to focus on a word that I will try to pronounce, Abgrund. Abgrund means grounding, and it's a word that's totally confused in the management and organization and psychology and philosophy literature. People don't really understand what grounding is. And at a future session, I'll come back and talk about some of the ways it's misinterpreted. And next week, I'll be doing something on Charles Saunders Peirce and John Dewey and William James on pragmatism, and I'll be taking some poetry. I'll be looking at Jane Addams with two D's, who was totally neglected as a kind of a person that put this into practice and got the Nobel Peace Prize and wrote books and created a whole revolution in Chicago at the time of the meatpacking industry and was the first woman to get a kindergarten, a workers' comp agreement, and a whole bunch of other things. So the fact that she's left out, I'm going to make up for that next week. So that'll be my turn. After that, we don't know what we're doing. So Sabine, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you're on.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. My name is Sabine, and I've had the privilege and good luck to be working on Heidegger together with David Bodie for many, many, many years. Today, we're going to tackle Martin Heidegger's work Besinnung, mindfulness in German, and I've been looking both at the English and the German. The Mindfulness is a book that was translated by Parvez Ahmad and Thomas Kaleri, Continuum International Publishing Group, 2006. My subject for today is the Abgrund, the abyss. It was translated in the Mindfulness book as Abground, which I would think for English speakers, what is an upground, right? Um, so I would like to dive into this Abgrund. In English, right, like in English, German, the German word, okay, let me tease this apart here. Let me start by plucking it apart. Grund is like in English, it is the reason for something, foundation, a cause, but it also is like a physical ground. For example, I could say I'm looking down into the river and I could see all the way to the ground. So the usage is very similar to what it is in English. Now here comes the part where it's different. Um, that little syllable, AB, up. It has many, many meanings, and it means a none or a not. It turns something into the opposite. It's like normal, abnormal. It also means off in the sense of moving away from something from some point of departure. So for instance, abfahren means I'm driving off from a point to somewhere. So up is a move away. In English, right, the abyss is, of course, a place of dread, the unfathomable darkness. Now, what does Heidegger in mindfulness, what does he have to say about Abgrund? What is that? The first time Abgrund is actually mentioned in mindfulness is in a poem, and it is a poem that is called Das Wort, the word. It is poem number 6. And Heidegger says that Abgrund, unlike ground, is the giver or source of something. So Abgrund is a source, a giver. And what is Abgrund giving? It is giving us humans the word. And the word is, of course, what designates something. So Abgrund is the origin of the word that makes it possible for us to assign words to things that we see around us. By naming something, the something gets an identity. This is an eraser. I put a name to it.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, I found out that this idea was expressed by somebody else before Heidegger did this. And this is, I admit, a poet I had never heard of, a German poet who lived from 1868 to 1933. His name is Stefan George. And he was, like Hölderlin, a big inspiration to Heidegger. In fact, Stefan George also wrote a poem which is called Das Wort, the word. And in it, he expresses pretty much the same idea. And let me quote: So lernt ich traurig den Verzicht, kein Dings sei, wo das Wort gebricht. What does that mean? It means, thus I sadly learned the waver, no thing can be where the word is lacking. So something becomes a thing, gets an identity because of the word, and the word springs from the upground, the word as such. Now, we can also conclude that Abgrund is, okay, number one, a lack of ground, a lack of reason, groundlessness. And at the same time, it is also the source or giver of something, which is, in this case, the gift is the word. There is another work by Heidegger which is called Der Satz from Grund. And he says that Abgrund is, in essence, the refusal of ground. And it is ultimately, as we will see again later, it is ultimately being itself that refuses to be grounded in any way. The next occurrence of the word Abgrund, and he, in this case, he writes it with AB, ground, Abgrund, he writes it with a hyphen in between. So it really indicates an away from the ground or a non-ground. So we're talking about now Abgrund as it is used in poem number 7, and it is called Aletheia by actually Pindar, who was born in 518 BC. And he translated it because he evidently knew Greek and interpreted this poem. And in Heidegger's interpretation of the poem, we find the following line. And I'm going to start with the German and then go to the English. And it says on page 11 of the German version, Die Lichtung ist der Abgrund als Not der Gründung. The translators in mindfulness put it like this: clearing is the upground as distress of grounding. Oops. Okay. In order to understand this line in the first place, I think we need to go to some definitions, and that will then bring us to Abgrund. Okay, remember, the clearing is the upground as distress of grounding. Okay, what is the clearing? Well, clearing, the Lichtung, contains the word Licht, which is light. And the Lichtung is a clearing, like in a forest. You come out from the forest, and all of a sudden, there's this clear area where there are no trees, and there you can see all of a sudden, right? It is so a clearing where you can see something. And this is used in a very similar way in Heidegger. And it is a fundamental, okay, it is a fundamental openness that makes it possible for something or someone to be perceived as being present. So it's like being in the light. I see you because you're being in the light. So fundamentally, beings are openly visible and we are open to perceiving them. So this is like an openness, a clearing. So we can think of the clearing as an openness that allows us to perceive things and humans. And in another text, Heidegger also explains us a little further, and he says, it is the lighting, the clearing is the lighting center that encircles all that is. So that openness that we are accessible to be seen encircles all of us. So, and I quote, it is from Martin Heidegger on the origin of the work of art. Only this clearing grants and guarantees to humans a passage to those beings that we ourselves are not, and access to the beings that we ourselves are. So it makes, in other words, it's a perceptibility of others, the light that shines on others so we can perceive them, but also the light shines, since we're all encircled by this light, we can also, of course, perceive ourselves. So in sum, I would say that the Lichtung, the clearing, is the fundamental perceivability of every being, the capacity to be noted as something being present for us. Now, mind you, this is like a fundamental ontological concept that we're talking about here. In real life, of course, we don't always see things. Things can be hidden, they are present to us or not. So that is the antic side of it. Yet this fundamental perceivability, of course, remains. For Heidegger and for the Greek philosophers that he was inspired and influenced by, what is visible, in other words, perceived, unconcealed, out in the open, is what was true. And what was not seen, or because of various reasons, what was hidden, concealed, was the untrue. So it is a different concept of time that is usually used. And he lays this out in his essay on the essence of truth. The next words that merit explanations in this line are Not der Gründung. Okay. And here I'm having a little problem with the translation because it's misleading and it really makes no sense to me. In mindfulness, Not der Gründung was translated in mindfulness as distress of grounding. And Gründung is, of course, establishing of a reason, a foundation, or a ground. So I disagree with this translation of distress of grounding, because the problem is that Not in German, yes, it means distress, suffering, but it also means need or necessity, which I think in this particular context makes a lot more sense. Um, the grounding is, of course, the Gründung. Gründung is the establishing of a reason, a cause, or a foundation for something. So what can we then make out of this line that we have in this poem? What is the meaning? Clearing is the Abgrund as necessity of grounding. My interpretation of this is the clearing, this perceptibility, something being in the light, is the necessary starting point for establishing a ground for something. That is my reading of it. So, and in this context, I am reading the Abgrund as a kind of starting point, a beginning. Let us move on. There are many definitions of Abgrund. So groundlessness is not the only one. Abgrund, Heidegger says, is being itself. His thinking goes like this: being is groundlessness because nothing and nobody can provide a ground, a reason, or foundation for it. At the same time, being has a tendency to conceal itself. It is unique and it stands apart from everything else and it conceals itself, which makes it difficult to fathom. It is not easy to define the meaning of being. However, Heidegger says that it is worth trying anyway by keeping to ask about it, ask about being, because he believes that this is a fundamental question that needs to be asked. It is difficult, but we can come closer, is his point. Now, here's a really interesting one that I really like, and this is quite a leap in thinking. And Abgrund as this ungroundedness, as the lack of reasons or foundations, causes and like and there's an untetheredness, and that means you're not tied to set patterns of thinking or acting. He sees this as a lack of constraint and, in that sense, a freedom. So, Abgrund as ungroundedness is this untetheredness, which is a lack of restraint, lack of set thinking, lack of set patterns. So, in that sense, Heidegger sees, and he makes this very clear, he sees the Abgrund as a place of origin, of freedom of action, and the freedom of creativity. Abgrund makes it possible to go beyond set conceptualization. It is a going beyond into the unknown, as he also makes clear in one of the poems. Go to the ungrounded ground and have the courage to go into the ungrounded. Next up is Abgrund as Grund des Grundes. And that is ground of the ground. He put the first ground into quotation marks. So that means he means as the Grund, as a reason here. So Grund des Grundes, the ground of the ground. So his thinking goes like this: Abgrund as the lack of ground is at the same time the need to establish a ground. And hence, he can say that the need of a ground that is upgrund is the cause or foundation of any grounding to occur. So here we have the many reasons of Abgrund. As you can see, it is much more than a void or a terrible place to be in. It is actually something that can be quite positive. It is more than the unfathomable, because the unfathomable, the unknown, the depth also gives rise to new things. It is the beginning of something. The upgrund is also the beginning. And that is as far as I got. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Uh, it's, I will say,
Thank you.
music, music to my ears. And that,
Oh.
uh, and there are many reasons for me to say that I won't go into, but this is a kind of applause for your delving. Um, uh, Whatever you have had to say just clicks with
Absolutely.
so much that is on my mind and has been on my mind and is in the reading and has so much to do with David's diagram of being, becoming, between, beneath, bets. Uh, it very much harmonizes in my mind with whatever Professor Boji has been up to all these years.
David?
Can I respond next? It's okay. Yeah, so Sabine and I have been talking about this ground, which I cannot pronounce properly in German, but
You did
um,
fine.
the Abgrund is very fundamental to much of social science. If you take the whole field of grounding in social science, how we ground our observations, etc., called grounded theory. I've done quite a bit of critique of that and trying to get to the position that Sabine has articulated. I've not articulated as eloquently, as precisely with the German translations as Sabine just did, but I just want to make a couple of points that right now grounding is was initially looked at as just going out in the field and taking notes and a very subjective understanding of what the ground is. That got quickly rejected, although it still is done quite a bit, and kind of a very anal empiricist approach to grounding took over by measuring things, by having diaries of what we think is going on, getting other people to read the diaries, doing inter-rater reliability of the diaries. It got to be this empirical nightmare. And and what I tried to do is show that we needed to get beyond a social construction of grounding to something ontological. And that's why I originally turned to Heidegger to get it ground. But the way Sabine is describing it, I think I've completely misunderstood what it means to to be the next revolution in grounded theory, that we would need to actually accept that, if I understood you right, um, that Abground in the poem was about finding a clearing, like a clearing in the forest, right? And something being present there. Now, that's an ontological concept, if I get you right.
Yes.
But an ontic understanding would be this kind of saying, well, what's really there? Can I see it? Can other people see it? Can we touch it, feel it, see it? All that kind of stuff ontically. But then you say, well, the ground of the ground, what's the ground of the ground? It's a very curious phrase because, and you talked a little bit about it as a possible search for a foundation, a possible going beneath what we understand things to be to find a foundation, and maybe the beginning of finding a foundation. So I heard these
Well,
different
it
terms.
actually, yeah, I mean, the lack, yes, I mean, it is actually, the way I understood this is that it is exactly this lack of ground that compels us human or creates the need, for us humans to create one. I mean, we're always looking, why is this? What is beneath that? What is causing, I mean, we always do that. That is what we do, we always ask why.
Mhm. Yeah. Sabine, you've just answered the question I was going to ask you. I was going to say, could we conclude from your remarks that in order to have creativity, we need people who are in a groundless state? Does groundlessness itself not encourage, but lead to um, creativity? And that for me is a little bit close to what people say about poets. They're dreamers. They're looking for something, you know.
And he is
And it was the best apology for groundlessness I'd ever heard.
And Betty, I mean, he actually talks about specifically that, the poet,
Okay,
the
great.
poet and the artist who creates. And he is saying that, the true, I mean, for something to be true art, the creative process is cut off from
Mhm.
all the externals, from considerations of fame and money and, all of that. It is like an isolating in a way, from the culture, from the whole, what
Yeah,
he would call a machination
yeah.
of,
Okay.
the cultural business
Mhm.
of galleries and all of that, the true artist is removed from that and just creates, from
Mhm.
within.
Yeah. Well, you briefly mentioned the state of refusing to be grounded, a person who resists the groundedness. And for a while, I thought, what would that be? But I think that all of us have a part of us that doesn't want to accept being this final product. We have things in us that we want to get to and all this. But how did Heidegger look at did he consider himself part of this groundlessness, or was he observing others?
I am not sure. I
See,
don't
I
have
didn't
an
take him to be someone with a kind of imaginative look on life. That's not the image I had of him.
I mean, but I mean, in a way, yes, I mean, I think it's a questioning life he led,
Okay.
and and
Ah,
he had this hut on a mountaintop, where
yeah. Okay.
he retreated to and was thinking. So to some
Okay.
extent, yes.
Ah, it's a little bit, I think, my putting him in a box, and maybe I should take a second look at him. Yeah.
And
Mm.
I do like that idea of, I mean, the artist, right? I mean, I think there's a difference, for artists just creates for a market,
Mhm. Yeah.
that will have one look, but that you wouldn't, that's not true art, really. I mean,
Mhm.
in Heidegger's view, it would not be true art. It's just,
Right.
okay, here's another cute kitten in a basket that I'm painting,
Yeah.
and I know it will sell, but what does it say,
Mhm.
about me or who I am? Nothing.
Right. Yeah. Okay, thank you. You were very clear, by the way. You made sure that before you went to each point, that you had made the first point clear, to the point that I'm realizing I don't think I understood Heidegger well enough because I wasn't clear on some of those terms. So you were very helpful that way.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I mean, the thing is, it like if I think it's like a souffle, you don't
Mm.
understand one word and the whole thing
Mhm.
falls apart. It goes.
Yeah, yeah, right.
I have a curiosity. Um, Two things. There was a quotation of Pindar that I think I got, but could you repeat that, either the German or the English translation?
Let me go back to it. My pages got out of order here, so I apologize. Okay, here we go. Ähm, Die Lichtung ist der Abgrund als Not der Gründung.
Die Lichtung.
Die Lichtung, the clearing.
Oh, does it? And here my trouble is my hearing. Is it Belichtung a word?
No, just Lichtung.
Licht- Okay, yeah.
Lichtung.
That, I've got it, but it's the article. Die
Yes, die
Lichtung
Lichtung.
ist der.
Okay, die Lichtung ist der Abgrund, spelled with a hyphen, als Not der Gründung. I can send it to you, Paul. You can chew on
No,
that when if you want.
no. I have it now because it was important for me to get the individual words, and my difficulty
Okay.
is a problem. And the oddness of, as you explained, der Not der Gründung was a concept. As you say, note. When I hear note, I hear need or necessity.
Mhm.
I was a news to me that note in German is also distress.
It
Uh,
is.
and that's logical because, oh, I need I need a drink of water and I don't have it and I'm miserable because I really need a drink of water. Uh, and so if the and this was Heidegger's rendering of Pindar or somebody.
Yes. I mean, yeah. I mean, yes, I think from what I can tell, he translated it, but he also, interpreted it.
And put himself into it because
Yes.
Pindar, for me, remembering many years ago, is really hard to translate. He is as crazy and crooked in his use of Greek in the way that Heidegger is in German. And so it,
Oh boy.
it, it, make, it makes sense to me that Heidegger, you know, roaming around in that millennia old literature, would land in the poetry of Pindar, which drove me crazy when I was a student and tried to translate from the Greek into English. So thank you. That was
Oh, of course. Well, and I mean, actually, something else came to my attention in my work here and research, and that is that there is a whole big history in German culture of Abgrund. And
Oh,
it was actually quite a big thing, both in the visual arts and in writing and poetry. It goes way back. And of course, there are undoubtedly different interpretations of what the Abgrund is. And as I mentioned, that poet Stefan George talked about it. And to my surprise, that other things that Heidegger wrote bear a striking similarity to Stefan George's ideas. So some of this might not be as original to Heidegger as I had thought. Um, this whole idea of the Führung, where you have the opposing forces of world, earth, human, and God. This is also from Stefan George.
um,
So this is not something, where I thought, oh wow, Heidegger came up with this. No, he is standing on somebody else in doing this. And this poet Stefan George, I would like to dive into his work next because I feel like George, it sounds like, was kind of the ground that Heidegger was working from. Speaking of ground.
may I request, please do so. Loading you up with another burden of something to get ready, but that guy is a name in my head from, and I can't trace the connection. You said he was 1868 to 1933.
Mhm,
So he was, quotation marks, a contemporary of Heidegger.
mhm.
Born earlier, I don't know how much earlier. And can you answer Austrian, Viennese, German? Do you know that?
I am not sure yet, but I
Oh,
can tell you that the poem does both the word that Heidegger seemed to borrow from rather heavily was written in 1914.
okay. Yeah,
So that predates mindfulness.
right. Mindfulness was, but it predates being time.
Yes.
I mean,
Well, yes. Well, no, no, being on time predates mindfulness.
yes, but the poem by Stefan Georg is from 1914.
Yes.
And I'll let it go there. I have to do some digging on my own because bells are ringing. That's why
Okay.
I like
Okay.
presentation so much. Uh,
Yeah, because I'm thinking, wow, I was actually a little shocked. It's like these lines are practically paraphrases of each other.
um, right in
In Stefan Georg and Heidegger. It's like,
and
whoa.
my 25 cents, and that's about its worth, is um, Heidegger, who I have tended to regard as sort of isolated from his contemporaries. All of the thinkers, poets,
Mhm,
writers, what have you, especially of that time frame from, I'm going to say, 1890 to 1930.
mhm,
Um, he was very much uh, embroiled, to me, I'm guessing, because I simply have no familiarity with Heidegger, very much a child of his time, um, by which I mean the ferment in Europe, and across boundaries, but definitely German from anywhere. And I can't pin down an origin. As you say, Abgrund is a focal point in German literature and the visual arts,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and the idea of nothingness,
Mhm.
you know, abyss, upgrund. And was also very helpful to me was your uh, covering of the connotations of op, and that it is it some of the time it's a negative, it's a privative prefix. It means not something. And it also, at the same time, or along with that, is about away, motion away from some point.
Mhm.
And the notness and the awayness are, it makes a pretzel. Uh, whatever is over the horizon, that's another word. Whatever is beyond is something that is away from us. And it's also, we can't see over the horizon. Wherever I am, if I'm out in nature, there is a line that separates the sky from the earth, the horizon. And wherever I am, there's always a horizon.
Mhm.
And it is always true that I cannot see over it, beyond it. I can't see what's on the other side, because the horizon is the thing that defines the other sideness.
Mhm.
And it's like the trouble with upgrowing, or the trouble with being. You said being refuses itself to let itself be identified as a something. It's not a something. Uh, it's it, it's not nothing, and it's not something. And I that's
Mhm.
what I keep wringing out of Heidegger's preoccupation.
Uh,
Can
y-
you
y-
comment on that?
Yes. Well, actually, there is, I just did not get to diving into that part. I need to be able to explain it yet, but he says the Abgrund is also the between.
Yeah, it's a crazy assertion, as David says so often. Beginning, middle, end. There is no, and I'm paraphrasing David here. There is no beginning, there is no middle, and there is no end. And yet, we can't get through a given day of our lives without some idea about something beginning and something going on and then coming to an end. And the idea of betweenness as the essence
Mhm.
of what we human beings are. We are these, we are creatures or entities that are, by our very virtue of being alive, we are between birth on the one hand and death on the other hand. And that's a quote from somebody's poem.
Mhm.
Um, Life is betweenness, having
Mhm.
birth and death as its limits. I don't know who wrote that, but anyhow.
It's
You know,
also in between.
Wanda has had her hand up for a while,
Oh, I'm
but I
sorry.
just,
I apologize. Sorry. Go ahead,
yeah, it's
please.
just,
Who's
I would
second
like to
first?
say,
Wanda?
I don't forget your thought, Paul. I would like to remind you that Buckton says what you say. But Wanda, you're first, and I'm curious about what you wanted to say.
Was going
Wanda,
along.
you're muted. Oh,
Yeah,
hi.
as I was hi, how are you?
Pretty good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I always like um how Heidegger is translated, but I also work hard at adapting it to the space I'm in, which is why I like it, because I see a lot of transferable interpretations to what I'm doing and the spaces I'm in. Right now, I'm in training to as a teaching artist. This is the teaching artist side. Um, Training in how to service children as well as sufferers of PTSD, um, who have trauma, and what to look out for and how to get them, as you translate it, applicant. Where you were talking about grounding. And also Boji said getting beyond social construction of grounding to the ontological. So I made a note here, distress with grounding is being stuck and dwelling on the past. That downward spiral that a lot of people suffer from.
Mm.
Getting them unstuck and grounding in arts and culture, which is hopefully something that will be a positive influence in their experiences to get them unstuck as a necessity to leadership. Now, the reason why I wrote that down, I'm dealing with that a lot in teaching. People, just because you have a proposal statement that focuses on who can take action in a problem, let's not throw people under the bus. That's not what we're here for. I talked about that this morning. Can we get beyond complaining about the problems in the organization and focus on how we're going to approach them without minimizing individuals and throwing people under the bus? That's not research. Now, that may be the perspective of the reader, but that's not how we're supposed to be moving forward and giving the information. That's what I got from Heidegger. And I'm involved in this STEAM, and they're calling it science, technology, engineering, environment, agriculture, math, and medicine. I'm involved with this Sci-Lead Festival in its 8th year. And what they're saying is kind of the opposite. And it's in Kabbalah, Sierra Leone, which is supposed to be one of the wealthier areas of Sierra Leone. What they're saying is grounding natives or indigenous people in arts and culture is a necessity to leadership. So they don't see that as being stuck. That's how I'm translating it from their perspective. That's not stuck. We need to go back to the past and recapture it before we can move into the future. If I'm making sense.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of redirect myself. Okay. So what you're saying in a sense is it's kind of okay to be stuck for a while, right?
It's actually I mean it's actually not okay. I mean, I think he is actually saying that if you want to move forward, you have to leave the old behind.
And that's the challenge they're having. They're having a hard time moving forward. And maybe stuck is the wrong word because they're so embedded in we got to get back to the past to the point where, I had to kind of nudge my way into the site lead festival. And I said, I got to use a different strategy here. So I have an intern now. I supported the intern, and it actually cost me less to do that based on currency exchange. who is also struggling to move forward because they have no jobs there. None. 10,000 students graduating, no jobs. If you're not
Oh,
an entrepreneur, you can just forget it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's why I'm so glad I'm here today because that's what the enlightenment was for me.
Wanda,
How do I
thank you.
convince an indigenous culture that, like as Boshi said, we need to get to the ontological? Do they even understand what that is?
That's
Uh,
that's a really difficult question. I don't have an answer to.
yeah.
But what's marvelous, oh,
Betty had her hand up.
I
I'm
see.
sorry, Paul. Betty had her
I,
hand up for a while.
The,
Yeah, I'll lower my
yeah,
hand.
the problem is Paul might have something to connect directly to what you're saying now. I was trying to connect back to what Paul was saying with you, Sabine. So let's try this. I'll just interject my point and don't forget what you wanted to say, Paul, because this is a good discussion too. But what I wanted to remind all of you, I'm going to sound like a one trick pony with my Bakhtin, but what was he saying other than what you were pointing out that there is no beginning? I mean, the beginning and the middle and the end doesn't work that way. There's always going to be more. The beginning and the end is a false notion. What he was trying to get us to see was that we are an enchaînement. In English, we call that a building up together of sense. Two people form a meaning together and then they make meanings with other people. But there is never a point where one person in isolation comes up with something. And so Heidegger, this was the point we were saying there. He built on Georg, I can't remember his Georg's last name.
Mhm.
Sartre came along with his being and nothingness, building on Heidegger. And I'm sure that Hegel and Husserl, I don't know how to say that, were founders of what all of them were saying. So let's put to rest right away the idea that someone may have gotten something somewhere. We all have gotten where we are today from someone. David, you are an inspirer of so many people. And what happened was they built on what you were saying. So really, my point is,
Mhm.
we should be very proud. Research, the beauty of it is that we take what people have learned and we take it further. That was my point. But that doesn't speak to what was just being said with Wanda. I think it's really good to ask the question about the past. Yeah. Mm.
Eddie, just real quick, that term enchaînement, I'm glad you
Oh,
shared
yeah.
that. It's used
Yes.
in drumming.
It
When you're
is. And it
Yeah,
does mean,
when
yes.
you're using the djembe drum,
Uh,
enchaînement is going
yes.
from a break and building up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the building is important and the not, well, enchaînement usually doesn't allow a stopping and starting. It winds
Mm-hmm.
together. And weaving together is part of the words that Bakhtin uses, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we're imbriqué. Yeah. Don't
And
ever
maybe
learn something in one language and try to explain it in another. How do you do it,
oh,
Sabine from German?
maybe if I find words that mean ontological in the Mende
Right.
and Creole language, maybe I'll have a better chance of
It
getting
would
the
be
point
worth trying.
across.
Yeah, you know, Wanda, it's worth trying. As soon as you start to learn some of the expressions in that language, it'll give you a field for the ones that could mean something to you. And Creole by nature is a mixing.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
But
And
I
also,
just got a call when I turned my screen off. I just got a call from Ibrahim Jabi. He was born Muslim. He went to Catholic schools. So he's quite a leader. But he's the intern. And only
Ah,
cost me a whopping $23. to support him. That covered his round trip transportation and his t-shirt. I was
Wow.
like, oh my God, I don't have to pay $1,800 to go to Sierra Leone for this. So I said, doesn't it
Mm,
make more sense for me to train him long distance
yes.
in representing us? It's an arts and culture station, and they put it at the top because that's what they consider most important. They say I know more than the indigenous about arts and culture. Because I was like, why
Uh-huh.
are you being assigned to this? Because you know more than the indigenous. I do?
Mm.
Me,
Yeah.
Wanda, actually, I believe that, I think that, with patience, I think you can teach anything. I
Thank you.
honestly believe, I mean, that's, I have a basic belief that everything is teachable, and learnable. It's just a matter of how you go about it.
Right. I'm amazed as a person that was born and raised in America. I've always had this complicated mind. I've been told that I can understand Heidegger. And that's why I stuck to it. When I was in a doctoral candidate, I'd have people come to the library. Oh, you're going down a rabbit hole. You're spending too much time on Heidegger. I was just determined because I like decoding things. That's just how my mind works.
That's funny. We share that, Wanda.
Yeah. So I love this.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you.
How can anything so abstruse and so removed from doing the dishes and taking out the trash and um, going to the grocery store, how can any time spent waiting, I'll call it that, wading through the swamp of Heidegger have any practical value? And what I heard, Wanda, is you just sort of shrug your shoulders and excuse my language, it's like a dog with a bone. I am going to, I am going to get this bone. And you don't care when other people say, that's irrelevant, that's impractical, that does not apply. And and you've said this before in relationship to Sierra Leone. I'm a person with roots deep in that, but I'm also a very American creature. And there is no discord between the very American creature that I am and the place of my ancestry. And when you made the point, Wanda, I'm attributing that to you. It's a good thing, or it's a fundamental thing to go back, whatever going back means, in your mind or on your feet and in an airplane, to some dirt, maybe somewhere on the planet. It is important for any human being to have some sense, some feeling of, guess what? Groundedness. Sabine,
David has his hand up.
I can't see it.
I figured as much. So, yeah, I'm liking the discussion we've had for the hour and 7 minutes. So, appreciate it. Um, just to review, um, Sabine has taken us into several different interpretations of Obground. And what it does for me is very important because I've been trying to understand, for example, in true storytelling, first principle. the effort and energy I put into something sustainable and calling it what's true. So if I can't find the ground, I have no way to tell what's true versus my truth, your truth, any other person's truth. And so we have no way to adjudicate what's true. So it crashes principle one of true storytelling. And then if I ask a basic question of who am I, is a very existential question. If I don't have any ground on which to answer the question, all I'm doing is making up shit, you know, and I'm not able to ground it. Third point, and I'll let you get in, Sabine, is if I am trying to increase my level of awareness by going beneath the mask, my whole presentation on beneath weeks ago, then I have to be able to remove the mask, find my true self. But if I have no ground for that, I can't be anything like authentic, genuine, or true. Thank you.
Wow.
Well, David, I think I I'm going to disagree with you here a little bit because it is being that is groundless, but it is not, you that, you have the capability, right, to and actually the duty, right, of, finding your authentic self. And, it's nobody else is gonna give that to you. I mean, it's not, so it's not that what you do or that you are, as David Bogie, groundless. I mean, I would not read it like that. I would read it, as like an ontological thing, but it is that does not preclude the possibility that you can ground yourself in meaning.
I understand some of what you're saying, but if I'm going to ground myself, right, and have some sense of my existential being, right, then if I am training somebody in true storytelling, as I've done for years, and they say, "Oh, I have the truth," and all of you are full of shit. I have the truth. I've figured it out. I'm in the right political party. I've got the right epistemology. I went to the right school. I hang out with the right people, and we got it. And you don't. Well, that's not grounding. That's something else. And it's
Hmm.
certainly not Bakhtin's polyphony. It's not a
Hmm.
polyphonic understanding of what's truth. So it kind of fails both Bakhtin and I think it fails Heidegger, you know? And if it fails both Bakhtin and Heidegger, where the hell are we?
Well, David, when you say it fails, it would be helpful to clarify for me. Um, if you have Bakhtin, this um, Bakhtin and Heidegger as rocks, I'm going to call them rocks that you stand on. That may be the wrong thing to say. Is that the wrong thing to say?
Probably.
Okay.
But
Uh,
let's say I did. Let's assume that that's true.
I'm just
Let's
yeah,
assume that that is the truth. Go
right.
ahead.
In other words, you have found a great deal of meaning in Bakhtin, and you have found a great deal of meaning in Heidegger. I think that I have found similar meaning, but I remain very iffy in my grasp of the meaning of whatever Bakhtin is saying. I have to keep working on it. Pretty much same with Heidegger. There is no end to this wrestling with these thinkers.
Well, okay, so let's break that down. If if Bakhtin says I'm to quote, um, I am answerable morally to intervene in the once occurrent eventness of being to help somebody who's laying on the ground in need of help. And if I'm the only one there, I am absolutely obligated not to be a bystander and watch them die. You know, I am obligated to do something. Now, that's entirely different than what Heidegger is saying. Heidegger is saying I'm in um, the potentiality of being in the world. I have potentiality to be more authentic in that world, but he doesn't say I have to intervene. He doesn't say I'm responsible for anything, you know. So I think that's a fundamental difference in those two approaches. And one of the reasons I'm turning a little bit to pragmatism, because in a pragmatic approach, I am in a mode of action and I am going to do something, you know, because I'm not going to stay as William James puts it, as an idealist. I'm going to take action. And as John Dewey, father of education in our country, says, I'm not just, and after his 1929 book, when he discovered quantum physics, I'm not going to be a bystander observer. And here he takes a position very similar to Bakhtin. I am going to be somebody who is responsible for my observation because I know that even if I touch something, it has an impact. Even if I smell something, even if I have any sensory awareness, I then become complicit in that quantum notion that anything that you observe, you're changing by not just observing it, but by trying to measure it. It's actually the measurement of your observation that makes a difference. So these three people, if you take John Dewey, Heidegger, and Bakhtin, have very different understanding of the nature of being. And let's look back to what the title of the book is. It's being mindful. What is mindfulness? Well, in other words, do I have in my mind some understanding of the existence that I'm in? In Heidegger, it's like, do I have some understanding of being in the uh, proximity to things and interacting with these things? The hammer is heavy. The blacksmith's hammer is heavy. Do I understand the quality of heavy? Or am I not being ready to hand that hammer to somebody else as something practical? Because if I'm not ready to hand the hammer to somebody else, like the pragmatist, he's saying that, is the hammer broken? Does the hammer not fit this object? Can you not use it for this kind of a process? What the hell are you doing with that kind of hammer and this kind of a job? So that's because he actually went and observed blacksmiths in the Black Forest to figure this out. So in that way, he sort of slants a bit to the pragmatist, but he's not an interventionist the way Bakhtin is. Bakhtin intervened to the point of going into exile, of going into bad health, of putting up with Stalinist regimes, having a secret society called the Bakhtin Circle to be able to even talk about this stuff. And then being so afraid of it later in life, he didn't do any publishing for about 50 years after his first book, something like that. Betty knows better than me. But you see what I'm saying? These are not the same. You
Um,
know?
yes, my instant reaction is, am I my brother's keeper? Answer.
Know if you are or not.
My answer is yes, I am my brother's keeper, whether I like it or not.
Well,
That's that's just
Paul, let's go back to Wanda's point. She said she wants to help people. She wants to intervene. She wants to do something practical, even. I think she even used the word veteran. I heard that word and my ears perked up. That
yeah,
she has an obligation, an answerability to go to Africa every so often and get in touch with her roots. That is finding out her groundedness is an Africano, however you say that. I don't know how you say it, Wanda, but you have that in your dissertation, you have that in your mission, you do that in your practice. I mean, she's Grounded. I don't know. Ground. She's finding her ground. If she found it, I don't know, but she's definitely out there. Wouldn't you say?
Well, and by doing so, David, I don't get stuck with my own ethnic groups because a lot of this is transferable to helping individuals who have similar challenges. What I'm finding, especially getting African diasporas to adapt to returning to Sierra Leone and now Liberia. I have a Liberian in my class. And we had a really interesting conversation because he's a project manager finishing his MBA and he's trying to create jobs in Liberia. His best friend is from Sierra Leone. He said it was impossible for his best friend to do it in Sierra Leone because they are just, I don't know, that it's the same government, but the things that I'm hearing are not really taking care of the people there. And Liberia is a U.S. territory, even though it's African. He said he's finding it easier for him to make progress in Liberia with 7 other people. And he's from Liberia. And I'm like, but Sierra Leone has more resources because they have gold and diamond mines. Maybe that's the problem. They're drawing corruption.
But Liberia is an impoverished country.
Yes,
Sierra Leone is not.
right. So
All
what is
right.
that saying? That an impoverished country has a better chance of creating jobs than one that's not?
Okay. Yes. Perfect.
And I'm going to intervene in a second here. Let's, so I have to plan for next week, but can
Okay.
we take a pause here? Uh, okay, so this week I really want to thank Sabine for being bold and brave enough to and study. I know I called her several times and she was actually working on this presentation. So a lot of work, preparation, and answerability went into finding the grounding of ground for us. Not that we ever found it. And the second thing I want to say is next week I will be doing something with pragmatism and build on these ideas. And then the third thing I want to ask, and don't feel you need to respond, Betty. You could say I'm not ready, but I would really love to get into Bakhtin again at some deeper level. I got
David,
all
I
the books
was,
behind me. I'm
yeah,
ready.
I was thinking about it, and it's been a while since I've read my books. I've got them all. But I thought of an angle that if I have my turn, it would be Bakhtin for Paul. In other words, I would be answering Paul's question, just what is this guy all about? Why would anybody want to spend so much time and bookshelf space, learning about Bakhtin? And I could actually answer the question, why did I become a one trick pony who spouts Bakhtin at almost every discussion? All right.
Oh,
Yay,
I mean,
Betty,
I would love that.
forward to
Would you
that.
be ready in 2 weeks to take that on,
Yeah.
or you need more
Yeah.
time?
I do need to go back through my books. I've moved out of my house into a fairly nice apartment, but for a while I would have said no just because I needed to find which box my books were in. But I've moved completely in now and I can be ready in 2 weeks.
Well, I like the book Toward a Philosophy of the Act because you can go to page 4 and 5
Okay.
and 3 and 2. In 3 pages, it covers all about the 2 kinds of answerability.
Okay, yeah.
Very
Well, and it's
introductory.
true that there are only 5 or 6 concepts that we have to. What you did today, Sabine, was to really parse, is that an English word? To parse the different meanings of the clearing and the grounding and all that. With Bhakti, no, I promise you, it's major concepts, 5 of them, 6 of them. And then, David, I would want your backup. What do you see in him? Are there aspects that you and I actually are looking from different angles? That would be interesting.
I don't know that we're looking at different angles because the material is pretty clear. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
you're
the
right.
one thing that's confusing is Dostoevsky's poetics, because there's about 6 or 8 different definitions of polyphony in there, of which
Yeah,
he's advocating one, but that means
uh,
there's half a dozen others that have gone into popular use that really aren't what
uh,
Bakhtin is talking about. So
well,
that's
that's a
that's
good warning. I will try to separate the popular derivatives from what he was trying to say. In fact, the Dostoevsky would be the best way to start because it is what made him so important.
Oh,
It
I'd
began
love
with
that.
that.
Oh,
It began with, I promise you, that is the foundation on which he built everything else. But I've
wow.
really got to go back to some of that. Haven't looked at it in a while.
Okay.
oh, Betty, that is so
Right.
cool.
So if you do
Okay.
that, then we're set for next week and the week
Mm-hmm.
after, and that would give
Mm-hmm.
all of you in the circle, the Enthinkment Circle, which was founded on
Mm,
Louis Ralph Pondy's idea of enthinkment, by the way. And
mm,
we could just kind of rotate one after the other if and Olivia and Tom and Wanda, if you wanted to do something on your areas, that would be
mm.
fine. Just be happy with that. Is that cool?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
if that's okay, I'd like to close out thanking Sabine again, thanking each of you, and I'm going to turn off the recording and so we can speak for the next 5 minutes
Oh,
with
so